Hello, everyone. This is Marcuson. I'm here to talk about my impressions of the Dominion Allies expansion previews. This week, each day of the week, we've been presented some new previews for the upcoming expansion. That includes cards and their corresponding allies. Well, not corresponding, but the allies that go along with them. And they've been available to play on Dominion Online, Dominion.games, the one from Shuffle It. So I've been playing a bunch. I've played with most of these cards. There's a few, since you can't select the cards in part specifically for the previews. There's a few that just never showed up in my randomizer. Uh, well, one or two, I think. We'll get to those, but I wanted to do this impressions video now since the actual expansion is coming out quite soon. Let's see where they in the 9th of March. That'll be when it's available online, so it's pretty soon. And I intend to do a video where I go through the all the new cards, give my impressions first look without having played with them or seen them before. So my live reaction, that's going to be. But here I know these cards in advance, so let's just get into it. Day one, they were showcasing how the allies and the favors work. So each game with a card that's a liaison type, we get you get a one favor token, and you get exactly one ally, and there are different 23 different allies, and you pick one of them at random. And each of the allies has different effects. They have different uses for the favors. So yeah, so Underling, Bauble, and Broker are the three that were shown the first day. So Underling, it's a +1 card, +1 action, +1 favor. So it's cantrip, you get a favor. A lot of the time, that's going to be very convenient. So if you want basically with Underling, if you want the ally, the effect of the ally, you're going to be able to do it without compromising what something the rest of your deck might do. Well, particularly it doesn't take up terminal space. So sometimes you don't have a village, but with Underling, you're always going to be able to generate more tokens. How good that is, that depends on the ally, but sometimes it ranges from pretty okay to really good. Except it's not as bursty as Broker. Bobble is a similar, with Underling, it's similar to Underling in that it's non-terminal, but this card doesn't draw cards, and it's a stop card itself. So, well, that's the same thing, but not the same thing, but so it's going to be harder to get a whole bunch. You're going to have a more noticeable deck cost when you use Bobble for the favors. But Bobble does other things. It chooses two different options: +1 buy, +1 coin, +1 favor, or you could top deck a card from that you gain onto your deck. So love that there's a two cost way to top deck your cards that isn't terminal. So Royal Seal does it for 5, but that's costs 5. But Tracker and Way of the Steel, those were terminal effects. But this one is non-terminal, so you get to do that, and you get a lovely plus buy as well. And the coin, so um, I find when you have multiple baubles, well, they're nice that you use one for the top decking, and then you use the other for maybe you use them for coins, and maybe one of them use a favor, maybe one of them use a buy, maybe both of them you use plus buy, +1 coin. So I like the flexibility, but it doesn't. It's not like a ducat where you trash copper, so it's not as when you gain it. So you are increasing your deck size, but depending on the ally that it's with, that could be worth it. Or it depends what else you're drawing with. But there are some allies where this is a worthy effect. And then Broker is the last one. So you trash a card from your hand and choose one. For each one it costs, you either get +1 card, +1 action, +1 coin, or +1 favor. So the +1 card comes in very handy. Um, it's going to be terminal when you do that, but apprentices could be nice to go off. If you have villages, you can trash a gold or something. So you could do that. But early game, it's nice that you can use that kind of a salvager. You don't get the plus buy ever, but uh, you do trash, let's say, an estate with it, you get a guaranteed +2. Or you know that the rest of your deck has coppers, or you only want to draw one copper, and you use it for +1 plus cards off your estate, and then that's even better because you get a bit closer to the shuffle. Uh, and then the actions, I don't know if it's correct, but I've been tempted to use the actions quite a bit. You trash, I don't know, 4 costs and you get +4 actions to go off on your turn. Maybe to help with some unfortunate collisions with your cards. Uh, Another big thing is the favors. It depends, really depends on the favor. Sometimes having a burst of favors is nice, but you can't always do it. And trashing estates, a lot of the allies, they require 2 favors to do something. So you trash an estate and you get the ally effect one time. It tends to be kind of slow, but you're still trashing cards. You're still thinning. So the nice thing is you could trash coppers with this, and you won't get anything out of it, but you get. So something that trashes both coppers and estates one at a time. Those are okay, a reasonable amount of the time, and especially since this does something tempo wise with your estates. I think Broker has functionality, but compared to Underling, it's a lot. It's not always as good of a sell, and sometimes you don't find the opportunities to play Broker. Whereas with Underling, you could always just play more. And if you have a way of gaining multiple Underlings, that's then you could really go off. Depends, but not always. Depends on the allies. Some allies where are just to help your redundancy. We're actually going to see that. We're going to look at 5 of the allies that we're showcasing day 1. So on the top left, you have Cave Dwellers. At the start of your turn, you may spend a favor to discard a card and then draw a card. Repeat as desired. So you can go through your deck. So if you have a few favors each turn, this is very nice. If you have just a way of getting a few favors each turn. So here, let's say with Underling, you have a couple of Underlings in your deck, or 2 or 3, and each turn, if you're worried about not you starting a turn with too many coppers, or you're not thinning enough, you get to move those aside and draw hopefully better cards. And you could do this very early. You could do this right away in the game. So the allies are. It's an effect that's always active, and you could whenever the ally says you could do something with the favors, you can do something with the favors. Um, so if your deck is amazing anywhere, if you've already guaranteed that you're going to be drawing, you don't having an excess of favors for Cave Dweller is not really going to do much for you. But it's pretty controlled. But in a lot of situations, that's not the case, especially early in the game. You're going to have hopefully a nice way of getting favors for Cave Dwellers, and you can keep going with the pace. And then let's go to the next one, Coastal Haven. I've played with this one a bit, and I don't know, it doesn't show up randomly a lot, but it it's quite good. A lot of the time, if you want, you have a lot of control over what you set aside, and you set aside. It's not like save is really good too, but you have to spend the 1 coin to buy the save. This you don't have to spend anything to get that effect. Uh, you could hold on to your estates that you're not playing to keep them out of the shuffle, but um, then you need a lot of favors for that to be worth it over holding on to I don't know, a copper to buy something more expensive. So yeah, it doesn't it you hold on to it, so you're not top decking, you're holding on to it, so you're increasing your hand size for the next turn. Uh, Hopefully you don't get hit by militia, but so let's say if you have a 3-4 copper opening split, you can just use your starting favor to hold one of those coppers, get a 5, and then further on in the game, you can make sure that your key cards connect, or if you have excess draw, you can just hold on to those extra cards and not just top deck them, add them to your hand, uh, which makes it even less likely that you mess up your draws on the next turn. So quite handy. I like it. Not too not too complex. Depends. So different ways of getting favors matters, but with Underling you can do some. You can keep up the pressure and the safety every turn. So that's nice. With Broker, maybe less good. But actually, that's not true. With broker, if you trash an estate, you get 3 favors, and you can hold any number of them, so you can buy something really expensive the next turn. So you trash for the favors, you hold on to the 3 coppers, in lieu of, let's say, getting +2 coins or +2 draw. But so yeah, I think Coastal Haven is quite good. Moving on to Peaceful Cult. At the start of your buy phase, you may spend any number of favors to trash that many cards from your hand. That's really cool. I really like that it's at the start of the buy phase, not the start of the turn, like with Ratcatcher. So you can do everything you want to do in your turn. You can draw. You can have everything. Have all the junk set up in your hand, and then you can start trashing. So I think, and if you're talking Underling Peaceful Cult, it's a lot cooler than Ratcatcher in that regard. Also, you start the game with a favor, so immediately you can trash a state. So if you open silver something, or even just silver, you're already guaranteed to hit 5, and there's a chance that you hit 6 as well. It increases the chance of hitting 6. So in the opening, you might use it already. And there's only ever one ally, so it's not like you're going to save the favor for something else. So there are some really neat. There are a lot of cards that could just make you trash really fast. The 3 that were before we saw before, all of them work really nice with Peaceful Cult. Maybe at least Broker if it hits a state, which is less likely if you trash a state at the beginning. But then on that same turn, you could trash three of those 3 of those coppers, uh, or 2 of those coppers, since if you use the favor. So that's still that's kind of like I guess it's similar to Steward, but still that's still pretty fast, pretty good trashing there. So I think Peaceful Cult is going to be a lot like those goat games, where there's just thinning very conveniently. Well, with goat you didn't have to gain anything, you didn't have to buy anything, but similar in terms of boosting the speed. After that is Plateau Shepherds. When scoring, pair up your favors with cards you have costing 2 for 2 VP per pair. So that's basically like all of your 2 cost cards are worth an extra 2 VP, so long as, well, capped by the number of favors you have. So for each 2 cost card, if you have a favor, it's worth 2 VP. So your estates, if you start the game, you'll have one of your estates worth an extra 2 VP for a favor. Um, This one, I don't know how to feel about this one. It can be really, really good if there's some good 2 costs. The big one is Bobble, I think, the one we just saw. So you get favors and you get plus buy to get more baubles. And with Shepherd, of course, it's really good. I mean, it's in the name, Plateau Shepherd plus Shepherd. So you're having all those estates. So long as you have a way of getting favors conveniently, there's always going to be at least one favor card. So one liaison. Other times it's just there might be more important things to do. So I think that the strength of this one varies wildly, but don't underestimate the value of having just free VP off something, because even if you're getting a 2 cost card that's not doing something necessarily. I mean, there used to be a card Great Hall from the first edition Intrigue, which was like 3 cost cantrip, 1 VP, and you could turn things into 2 VP, into 2 costs that are like twice as much as VP. So like, although it's not a victory card, so it doesn't have those interactions, but I still think there's sometimes it's gonna be worth going for Plateau Shepherds. League of Bankers is probably the most intriguing one. The most what's it called? Makes you imagine lots of scenarios. So League of Bankers at the start of your buy phase, +1 for per 4 favors you have, round down. Um, this could be quite slow to get off the ground, at least if you're using Underling, because this is one where, let's say, Broker is a bit faster at triggering this. So basically, you can get yourself a bunch of, as if you're getting treasuries. Well, not really better than treasury, sort of like getting the key forever from the treasurer. Uh, Trying to get them as your main source of money is not necessarily going to be great unless there's some kind of synergy with it, let's say with tactician. But I found that in the wake of discard attacks, so if you're going in a money route and you're pushing for provinces and you feel like uh, you're otherwise going to peter out, well, if you got, let's say, used broker to get a bunch of favors and you're always going to get a, like a +3 or something for whatever scenario, you're going to be able to keep hammering provinces. So it's very good as a province pressure, um, potentially as a province pressure thing, but as a kind of the core engine piece of your the centerpiece of your deck. It's not really. It's a bit too slow for that. At least from the liaison cards that we've seen so far. Even with Underling, probably the closest one for like masked bankers, but then you need to gain a bunch of them. So maybe you have a workshop or you have like throne room or something. Even then, that's some other card that you're not throning. All that just for money, which is nice, but it's you have to first make sure it's buy and it's not points. So you have to do stuff with that money, and it's not drawing cards, but still, uh, it's not trash. It really, I think I like it with broker more so. Like if you pair broker with silver in the opening, you didn't miss your estates. You can trash the silver for favors, uh, get up to 4 because you already start with 1 favor, so that helps it a little bit. And that first getting that 1 VP is going to be the easiest because you start with 1 favor, so you only need 3 favors to get to the first +1. So I think there's going to be a lot of times where you just go for the +1 and then stop worrying about League of Bankers and just be content with the +1 every turn. Um, there were some just general cards that came out on day one. The Skirmisher, the Hunter on the left. A +1 action, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. From these cards, put an action, a treasure, and a victory card into your hand. Discard the rest. If you're wondering how multi-type cards work, you basically do those action, treasure, victory in that order. So first you put an action card, and if you picked if you the action victory, if that was your only action, so if you that was your only victory card, you're not going to be able to pick up a victory card. So you want to pick like the non-victory card first as the action if there's multi-types. But whatever, maybe you want to not draw a certain card, so you have that control. Discard the rest when you do that. So 5 cost, that's kind of like laboratory if you draw 2, but that would be a little bit better because you're picking the best 2 of the 3 top cards. Uh, in action heavy decks, particularly ones that have a lot of hunters, they start to anti-synergize. Well, not necessarily, but you start getting decks of only actions, so it becomes kind of like a border guard, which you know what border guard with the what's it called, the lantern. You know what, the border guard is quite a good card once it has the lantern, even as a 2 cost. So has that going for it. But if you need to increase your hand size, it's not always reliable. But other times, if you have enough hunters, hopefully one of those hunters is going to get like a treasure and a victory at the same time. So you play them enough, eventually you're going to be doing okay, and you have a lot of selection. You could typically um, find other hunters. It's a nice card. I like that it doesn't have, even if it's quote unquote whiffs. It's not like Stables whiffing where like you don't draw at all if you have no treasures at hand. At least this one always uh, replaces itself and replaces yourself with the best of your top 3 cards. So um, I like it. I don't know how. I think it's not as domineering as Hunting Party, but despite the similar in name. But anyway, Skirmishers, the other one, it's a +1 card, +1 action, +1 coin. So you know, uh, cantrip coin peddler. This turn, when you gain an action card, which it's an action card, each other player discards down to 3 cards in hand. That's pretty powerful effects. Just if you have ways of if you're gaining skirmishers, if you have a way of getting skirmishers every turn, you're kind of putting pressure on the opponent, making it harder for them to do the things they want to do potentially. And sometimes there's some smaller actions, so like I don't know, scrying pools in action technically, so you could be like discarding every turn. Although scrying pool probably doesn't need that much help. Even as a 3 card hand, you can probably draw a lot. But other cases, um, You could do it mid-turn, so there's a lot of sometimes. So you're attacking while benefiting yourself if you have a way of gaining actions. And the card itself is even if you just get skirmishers one after the other, you'll find that cantrip coin is actually pretty good. Uh, people don't like to. People have forgotten. I mean, market's a good card. I'm just saying. The skirmisher, you'll get a bunch of them for the attack, and you're slowing down the game a little bit by doing that, and by slowing down the game, you make it so that the cantrip effect pays off in the long run. So that's kind of you're giving it the means to you're giving it the time it needs to get a stack strong. You're giving it the time it needs to get the stack going, thanks to that discard attack. So that's kind of nice that you get a bit more time to amass these cantrip coins and then have a really nice deck out of it. Day 2 is where they introduce the rotating piles. So these are cards that there's 4 of each of them, 16 total, and they start with the cheapest one and then move up to in cost. So first you have the first 4 Herb Gatherers, then you have Aqua Lights and Sorceress, and then Sybil. Herb Gatherer is the only one that rotates the pile. So what that means is that whatever's the top augur is shifted. All copies of that same augur that's on top go to the bottom of the pile, and then the next augur in the sequence is revealed. So you play Herb Gatherer, you rotate the pile, you get Aqua Light. The tricky thing here with Herb Gatherer is that it's the only one with plus buy. So if your opponent gets it, and it's the only plus buy, you may be compelled to get it yourself, and it's not like Flag where you get a big benefit for going second. Here, you you get it just to maintain parity. So most of the time, if your opponent opens it, you'll know by turn 2, and then on your turn 3, if you're first player, you can get it, and if you're second player, you'll have known that your opponent opened it by the first 2 turns. Except it costs 3 and not 2. So sometimes you're left with a hand of 2 coins, and then for whatever reason, you can't get the Herb Gatherer and your opponent does, and then they rotate the pile before you can get plus buy. I don't know. I don't know why I'm harping on that so much. It's just an annoyance I have with the card. But the card itself, you put your deck into your discard pile. You're forced to do that, but then you get to play a treasure out of it. So even if it plays a copper, you at least get to the bottom of your deck. Maybe you discarded some good cards too, so maybe you'll never get to your key card. In that case, you could just not play it, but then you don't get to rotate or anything. Um, it's okay. I mean, even as a card in the late game, even on its own, could stand pretty strong if you have even just gold or some other kingdom treasure that you want to play every turn. Uh, so it's an okay card. The next one is the Aqua Lights. You can trash an action or victory card from your hand to gain a gold. So, and you may trash this to gain and gain an augur. So if the pile so the idea is you'd play Herb Gather to rotate above the Aqua Lights, and then you can start getting Sorceress. Um, I kind of like the Acolyte as some kind of some mid game thing or early game thing where you find a way to find your estates, you trash them, you get a gold, and then you get rid of the augur soon enough. You can also trash actions at the goal, so like it has more flexibility than say transmute. But it does nothing else. It doesn't increase your coin count for the turn. It just hopefully it trashes itself for a better card after you gain a gold or 2, or no golds. Maybe you just don't. Maybe you just really care about getting the Sorceress or Sybil. Speaking of, the Sorceress is +1 action. Name a card. Reveal the top card, review deck, and put it into your hand. If it's a named card, each other player gains a curse. So you always get the card. So it's always a cantrip, and if you know what it is on top, each other player gains a curse. So that's kind of like familiar levels of um, cantrip curse. But maybe you don't guess the card correctly, and then they don't. So there's some feels bad there. Um, in cases where you could get several sorceress, I think it could put pressure on your opponent. It's not the best thing, but it's something. And then it particularly synergizes with Sybil, which is a 6 cost +4 cards, +1 action. Put a card from your hand on the top of your deck and another on the bottom. So when you obviously you think, well, you put a card on top of your deck, you can name it with Sorceress. And sometimes you get through your deck and you know what the bottom card is too, so you can name that with Sorceress again, so you can get 2 curses out. But more importantly than that, it's just a really good card. It's just +4 cards, +1 action. So pick the best 2 of the 4 cards. It's 4/6. So if we were talking about like comparing it to Hunter, which was like the best out of maybe the best 2 of from the top of your deck, this is from the top 4, and then you could do some top deck shenanigans. But it costs 6, but maybe you trash an Acolyte to get a Sybil, for example, or you just it's often worth the cost. I mean, what's it called? Hunting Grounds is +4 cards, no plus action, but then you get to keep the cards. Overall, I like this pile a lot, except for the Herb Gatherer wonkiness. But I like the Acolyte, the Humble Acolyte. I like this. I like Sorceress. I like Sybil. I like this pile a lot. There's another rotating split pile, which is the Odyssey split pile. So again, there's 4 of each. You start with Old Map, then you can reveal Voyage, then Sunken Treasure, then Distant Shore. Old Map is, +1 card, +1 action. Then you're forced to discard a card, and then +1 card again, and you may rotate the Odyssey. So having that filtering, so maybe if you're discarding an estate, that's like you drew 2 cards for 3. Pretty good. It doesn't increase your hand size, so you're not gonna go too far with a deck of 4 old maps, but it gives you control over the rest of the pile. So speaking of, there's the Voyage. +1 action. If the previous card wasn't yours, take an extra turn after this one, during which you can only play 3 cards from your hand. So these stack on the same turn. So it doesn't say that this is the first time you play Voyage. So if you play 3 Voyages, you got 3 extra turns, but then you can't play future Voyages to get more turns after that on those extra turns. This is a tricky card to get used to. You can play cards from your deck or something, but 3 cards from your hand, that's very strict. That's a very big restriction. Even stuff like Toil doesn't get around that. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't get around this restriction. So with a 3 card with only being able to play 3 cards, at least it makes that turn short. So at least it's not that obnoxious compared to, let's say, Outpost, where it's like to get an entire extra turn. What you can do with 3 cards? Well, you can play a remodel variant. You can like turn something into problems. You can set up well, I don't want to say durations, because if you could play durations already, you would be doing that on the same turn as you would rather do that on the turn where you can do a lot of stuff. But you can put stuff off. You can take reserves cards off the mat. You can organize the shop. You can gain some You can gain some horses. There's a lot of creativity you can do. So it's kind of like a restriction breeds creativity. So I like that aspect of it. Extra turns, it could be a bit of a pain to deal with. As for how good the card is, it's not always good, but at least you draw a full 5. So at least you see, if you have a key card you really want to play, you'll have a better chance of seeing it than with Outpost. And it's non-terminal, so you can play it along. I like that it's non-terminal, so you can do it alongside other stuff. And hopefully you manage to get a Voyage before the old map rotates it again, because then after that it's Sunken Treasure, which is a treasure that you gain an action card that you don't have in play, a copy of in play. I like this card a lot. There's often sometimes there's a lot of redundant pieces. So let's say you have a hunter and a lab on the same board. Well, if you had a bunch of hunters, well, now you gain the lab, or vice versa, or different sources of villages. Sometimes you picked one card to get, and then you didn't get the other for whatever reason. Now you can get that to get that extra assurance. So now, since you know Sunken Treasure is on the board, now you'll be more incentivized to stick with one of those redundant pieces instead of mixing and matching for whatever hellish reason. And the nice thing is that it stacks on itself. So if there's one card that you didn't get and you had, let's say, 2 Sunken Treasures, or you crown the Sunken Treasure, you could get that same card twice. It doesn't say in discard, it doesn't say that you've gained this turn. You could gain the same card with the Sunken Treasure as long as it's not in play. And then the last one is the Distant Shore, which is +2 cards, +1 action, gain an estate for 2 and 2 worth 2 points and cost 6. You can get that with Sunken Treasure right away. Well, after you rotate it, but you can get it, and it's 2 VP. That doesn't. That's like a cantrip. That's like a lab the first time, and then only after you play it you get the estate. And the estate will eventually clog your deck, but maybe you have a. It's like familiar. Maybe you have a good reason to get that estate. Maybe there's something you could do with it. Maybe the estates are empty anyway. So it's actually, I think it's better than it looks. And having extra draw. So having draw means that you're going to see more voyages. You're going to see your Sunken Treasures more. So, and the card itself is 2 VP. It's what I said about like Plateau Ship. Is just having more points sometimes is just for getting cards you kind of wanted anyway. It's just makes it harder for the opponent to like kind of pile out in some convenient way. So you put some. You could complicate your life for your opponent. So don't discount the Distant Shore, but sometimes it is a 6 cost for just the lab, and sometimes the lab is not even particularly attractive for 5 cost, but it's something. And I guess old map can discard the estate for something. So there's not, if you have both, I mean, there's a bit of synergy there as well. Then we go to swap, which is another day 2 card, +1 card, +1 action. You may return an action from your hand to its pile to gain to your hand a different action costing up to 5. This is any action that has a pile, including non-supply piles. So wisps, horses, yeah, all that stuff works with this. You return it, and it's if you succeed in returning it, you gain a 5 to your hand, which could be another swap. So if you have like 5 horses in hand, you can like turn them all into swaps. But more than that, it's just if you have some cheap 2 cost card or 3 cost card that you was useful in the early game, it's not useful anymore. You can just replace it for a card that's more important in the mid game or the end game. It's actually a really nice card. I like it a lot, but it's, I mean, the biggest problem is that you have to actually pair it up with an action that you want to get rid of. So it's not it's not a card you want to rely on to gain 5s early game necessarily. It's more of a mid game card. It's more of a tactical thing. It gives you a lot of tactical flexibility. Think of Sculptor gaining 4s, but this could gain 5s, and it's 2 hand, and your turn doesn't. You get the action to do something with that which you just gained. So maybe you stick with like 1 or 2 for the most of the game. For the mid game, turning, I don't know, whatever 2 cost card, Pearl Diver, Rat Catcher, Chapel to a 5, and even something like turning Chapel into a 5. That 5 could be I don't know, another treasure. So something big and it could be something big and splashy. So that's kind of it's a good card. I like it. Then some other allies similar to the ones of the other. So for Crafters Guild, now we're getting to the ones that care about having 2 favors. At the start of your turn, you may spend 2 favors to gain an action card costing up to 4 onto your deck, which is, it's like Armory from Dark Ages, except you're not playing a terminal action. This is cool if you have synergy with the top of your deck. So let's say with Sorceress, it's a good way of getting 4s. Let's say Villages. It's just nice. It turns your favor givers into workshops, but it doesn't stack. You can only gain 1. You can only gain it once per turn. It doesn't say repeat as desired like Cave Dwellers does, so you can't do it more than once per turn. Workshops are just, I feel in general they're somewhat situational, and at least this one it's more convenient because you can get it every turn. Not actually, it depends on your favors, but at least you're not necessarily playing a terminal action on the turn that you want to gain a 4, and you see it right away, so it kind of gives some speed It's as if that favor it's as if that favor giver was the workshop since you're top decking it. So uh I don't know. Goodwood workshops are good. City State though, when you gain an action card during your turn, you may spend 2 favors to play it. Um, I think it's really cool. It's a cool effect. It's just sometimes if you're doing it on the buy phase, you may have difficulty finding an optimal target for it. Maybe if it's a trasher, you can trash an estate the same turn you gain it. But if you're not gaining stuff in the middle of the turn, uh, there's it's less magical. But if you are getting stuff in the middle of the turn, it can be quite potent if it's like a draw card. If you let's say you gain and play Smithy right away, just spending those 2 favors. It works for any action. So if you gain a horse, you can also play it. If you gain a cavalry, you can also play it. So you draw 2 cards and then you gain 2 horses. It's also and the big thing is if you gain something that gives plus actions and you spend the 2 favors to get it, uh, something that would normally have been terminal like a workshop now is not terminal anymore. So it has all those tricks that innovation from Renaissance has, but you can do it more than once per turn if depending on how many favors you have. So, is it good with Underling and Broker? Broker a bit later, yes, because you start, once you accumulate a few favors, then you start using Broker for like um cards or coins or something, and then you start playing those using those favors to play those big cards right away, play them faster. So underling it really depends if you have ways of reliably gaining regaining actions each turn consistently rather than one big shot. So uh, we'll have to wait and see. But I think I've enjoyed playing with City State. Then we go to the day 3. There's a emphasis on choices. Here's another rotating split pile: the Town Crier, Blacksmith, Miller, and Elder. The Town Criers choose 1+2 coin or gain a silver or +1 card +1 action. You may rotate the townsfolk. So if you're paying attention to Elder, you'll know that if you're going to be able to choose maybe 2 of these options if you play it with Elders. So the Town Crier for 2, having the choice of giving it +2 coin terminal or just +1 card +1 action is already really good because sometimes you just want a silver that goes away after, or you want a way of generating silver. So there's some nice. I think the card itself is already worthy of being a 2 cost, but you also get to rotate the townsfolk. Blacksmith is choose 1, draw until you have 6 cards in hand, or +2 cards, or +1 card +1 action. I like that it always has a +2 card action, +2 cards part, because if you're playing this with like as a village smithy thing, well, draw until you have 6 cards in hand is only going to be useful if better than +2 cards if you already have uh, if you played some stuff that made your hand size lower. Although it does mean that with Elder, you can. First of all, Elder is one of those cards that uh, reduces your hand size while it reduces your hand size without being a terminal, and then well, it's kind of a term, not really. It's playing something else. It's already reducing your hand size, and then so you could choose the +6 cards and then the +2 drop the 6 cards and the +2 cards. The order is always whichever one comes first. So first you draw 6 cards and then you get +2 cards, or um, you'd get +6 cards and then the +1 card +1 action. The card itself, I like that it could be a cantrip. Um, I feel like it's more situational than let's say Town Crier or a Miller. So sometimes I might just skip over Blacksmith and go straight to the Miller or Elder. So the Miller is +1 action. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck. Put 1 into your hand to discard the rest. Doesn't count as a choose card for Elder, but I was talking about how Hunter's picking up potentially the best card of your top 3 cards. Well, now we know what that effect looks like on the best of your top 4 cards. It's a 4 cost miller that you can't open with. So maybe the cost is not as meaningful, but so a hunter that gains 1 card or a border village that gains 1 card is apparently not the most amazing thing, not necessarily the be all end all. Uh, but the miller itself is nice. It's nice that it's when you want to pair elder with one of these other townsfolk, it helps you do that. It helps you find that key card. So it works. It's synergistic, even though it doesn't directly synergize with elder. It does synergize with elder because it finds the cards that elder wants to see. So it's still um, good in that sense. And the elder itself, it's +2 coins. Play an action card from your hand when it gives you a choice of abilities. This turn you may choose an extra option. I was alluding to it the whole time because it's really helpful when it comes to assessing the value of the spell, especially since Town Crier can just rotate be a cantrip and rotate the pile. So it's a lot like old map where you're not hurting your turn by rotating the pile compared to, let's say, Herb Gatherer where it's a terminal, so maybe you don't have it's a cost of another terminal you wanted to play. Overall, the pile is nice. I don't know how it's not like a centralizing thing, but it's something that's pretty cute. It's a good thing to have. It's a good support. It's a good greases the wheel, so to speak, of your deck. So especially given how convenient it is, you can go from Town Crier straight to Elder, and having Elder turn your Town Crier into +2 coin cantrip or uh, gaining silver, gaining silver +2 or gain silver +1 card +1 action. That's always nice. Not always, no, the opposite of always nice. This is situationally very nice. Uh, but otherwise, the silver doesn't really have synergy with any of these cards. Blacksmith doesn't really want it. Miller doesn't really want to see it. Elder doesn't really want to see it. So the silver has to. I can't say how good that silver is going to be on the Town Crier. Depends on what else is around it, like a transfer benefit or the usual suspects for silver. Some other cards that were revealed. Town on day 3. Town is choose 1 +1 card +2 actions or +1 buy and +2 coin. Which reminds me of Spice Merchant, but the card itself is uh, it's really good. It's a really good thing to have for a village. This is like that magic village that you can open with, like the Conclave should have been, but this is the real thing where instead of drawing a card, you open with this so like a terminal silver, and it comes with the plus buy, so you never have to worry about running out of. You never have to worry about overbuilding too much because this will always give plus buy. At least it covers that, but there's still the draw aspect. So the plus coin is terminal, but the villages are village, so you can help them play more of it. So with overdraw for redundancy, you don't screw yourself over for getting redundant. You don't not screw yourself over, but you're not playing it as inefficiently by playing and by getting a bunch of towns. So very very cool. Next one is modify. Trash a card from your hand, choose 1 +1 card and +1 action, or gain a card costing up to 2 more than the trash card for 5. Maybe my favorite card of the set. Well, that's hard to. A lot of the other cards that I really like are kind of maybe they're part of a split pile or they're finicky. Like they're not this. It's not on their own that they're really fun. But modify is on its own really really fun because it turns out remodel is a very nice, very flexible card. As soon as it can. So remodel is it has all those tricks of remodel. You can turn a gold into province. You can turn a province into province. You can gain something and in the middle of the turn, like it's silver into a 5 cost. The thing that remodel couldn't do well is trash copper. This is remodel, but now trashes copper a lot better. You get +1 card, +1 action, and turns out that makes the card definitely worthy of costing 5 from my experience. I really like the card. Even if you get 2 modified and you find yourself in a bad situation, you can at least trash one of the modified to the other to cycle it. Let's say that typically happens when you only have 5 cards in hand. Uh, you'll still reduce your hand size to 4 since you trash something, kind of like Junk Dealer, but Uh, Still, it gives me new appreciation for remodel. So I like modify. There's a few more allies from I think day 3. So band of nomads. When you gain a card costing 3 or more, you spend a favor for +1 card, +1 action, +1 buy. That's one favor only. You can't repeat that. So the best thing about this is that if you had to buy if you were if the only source of plus buy costs 3 or something, and you've been putting off getting it, and you suddenly are generating 9, 10 money, and you don't want to spend a whole turn getting that plus buy, well, you can use the band of nomads to get that 3 cost or more plus buy, and then something else. And since you could do that because you start the game with one favor, so even if you don't get any liaisons, it's always going to have that helpful thing. Uh, the other thing you could do is in the opening you can try to use it for +1 card to manipulate the shuffles a little bit, or if you want to make a bunch of junk Mr. Shuffles. So let's say you opened with a really nice uh, 4 cost, and you want to make sure you see it early. Maybe on your turn 2, you use the +1 card and shuffle and hope you don't draw the 4 cost, unless it's a night card. Maybe it was a Devil's Workshop. Maybe you do want to use that right away. So otherwise, I don't have too much to say about Nomad Camp. It's not a spectacular. I don't think it's as spectacular as the other cards. It does make your if you have favors, it does make your workshops not just your workshops, anything that gains. So your super workshops, your artisans, all that stuff, it makes them +1 action. I think artisan in particular really likes having extra +1 action staple onto it for to boost midturn shenanigans. So it takes some finesse. It's not sparkly, but it does have its useful tricks. Then Architect's Guild is a lot more sparkly. When you gain a card, you may spend 2 favors to gain a cheaper non-victory card, like the same way that Haggler works. Um, it could be very convenient because it's not restricted by it's only restricted by being cheaper. So if you get a 5, you can also get a 4. If you get a 4, you also get a 3. So you're getting stuff twice as quickly as long as you have favors. So basically, doubling your gains. Sometimes being able to double the amount of gains you're getting um, on certain turns. Uh, I think it's a really powerful effect. With most of the favor cards, Broker, Bauble, Hireling, all of them have great synergy. Have their own sorts of special synergy with Architect's Guild. Even like with Broker, you're always gaining the fuel to get more favors. So if let's say you get a 5 cost, you get a 4. Or if you can get a gold and a 5 cost, and then you can trash that gold or the 5 cost for more favors, and then you're getting a profit of favors each time you do that, so you can get other stuff. So uh, you can really get something going with Architect's Guild. Day 4, we were introduced to another. Day 4 of previews, by the way. So, we were introduced to another rotating split pile, works like the others, 4 of each. Student, Conjurer, Sorcery, Lich. The students is +1 action, and these are also liaison. Well, the students is a liaison card, so it's always going to come with an ally. So student is +1 action. You may rotate the wizards, trash a card from your hand. If it's a treasure, +1 favor, put this onto your deck. So if you trash a copper with it, what happens is that you're left with a 3-card hand, and then the student is going to go on top of your deck, and then if you trash something next turn with the student, you're going to be left with a 3-card hand. So it's very bad for hitting anything that's remotely close to a price point. But in exchange, you're trashing at least and you don't get that if you're trashing a state. If you trash in a state, you stick with the one favor that you started with until the next time you see your student. But you could also rotate the wizards every time you play it, and it's +1 action, so it's non-terminal. But you're forced to trash your card. I think that Some allies are really nevertheless really good with students. Let's say if we're talking about Crafters Guild, or if we're talking about um, which was the other ones we've seen so far. Well, with Peaceful Cult, you're also going to be trashing really quickly because every time you're trashing a treasure, you're also trashing another thing, so you can get thin with that. Um, League of Bankers is another interesting one. So what you would do with students? You would trash 3 coppers, uh, and then stop trashing, and then like move on to something else, and then you get as I said before, you stop at the +1 for a League of Bankers, and then you do other stuff. So uh, all this to say, yeah, the student is kind of really opening it is really bad. It's good for trashing, well, decent for trashing. Really bad for hitting price points, worse than like let's say Forager or something. You're not going to hit 5 or even 4 pretty reliably for a while until you stop doing this thing. But uh, so the favors better be worth it. Conjurer is the next thing. So at the start, gain a card costing up to 4 at the start of your next turn. Put this into your hand. So that's put into your hand, not top deck. So that's a nice surprise. So you're going to be able to start with a 6 card hand uh, when you play the Conjurer. And what it does is gain 4. It's like those workshops. It could gain itself. It could gain, but it's not amazing to gain itself or even a student. You're probably hoping to gain other stuff. But at least it's every turn. It's even though it's a duration. Uh, it's not like you lose access to it the next turn. So it's not like a duration workshop the way it might initially seem. On the contrary, it's kind of like a supercharged, a faster workshop since you're able to use it like twice in a shuffle. Um, Otherwise, it has no particular synergies with the rest of the wizards. They're called. After that, a sorcerer. It's a +1 card, +1 action. Each other player names a card, then reveals the top card of their deck. If wrong, they gain a curse. So it's kind of the inverse of sorceress, but considerably worse because it doesn't stack. The first time the opponent guesses whether they guess right or wrong, the second sorcerer, they're going to know what's on top of the top of their deck. They don't discard that top card. That would actually be kind of crazy if they did discard the top card. Then it would be maybe a very strong junker if they discard the top card. Because with a 5 card hand, they're never going to be able to reduce the search space of what they're going to guess the way you can with sorceress. With sorceress, as you draw more and more cards, it becomes like wishing well becomes more and more reliable as a cursor. So that's something to note beyond just the simple draw. So I like sorceress more than sorcerer. Well, I like the art of the sorcerer. That's amazing, and I like that you get one and it lets your opponent think. After that, though, you have the lich, which is +6 cards, +2 actions, skip a turn, which means your next turn that you would take, don't take it. Don't do anything with durations. Don't. Everything is in stasis. The stasis is the best way to look at it. When you trash this, discard it and gain a cheaper card from the trash. So that's potentially really cool. Potentially because it depends what's in the trash. Student is a trasher, but you don't gain anything particularly good by trashing an action or even the best thing is you're gonna trash a silver. You're gonna trash a silver and then gain that silver with lich. What are you gonna do there? Um, Still, the lich costs 6. You can remodel it into a province, or you can modify it into a province, and then you can do that multiple times with the same lich. You don't need, you're forced to gain a cheaper card from the trash, so that's a bit of a bummer sometimes. But the card itself, you play it, you get it. It's like you get a double, you get a tactician up front. Um, the thing is though, you're getting the soul. It takes a while to get to the lich to rotate into the lich, so it's not like tactician where your other turn was going to suck anyway, and you want to have a really nice turn. So I was, thinking of it like Madman, but even with Madman, it's not like you skip the next turn. You get a really good turn now to do amazing stuff, and then the next turn you I don't know, you buy you get another madman or something. You buy something. Well, we'll let you get to do nothing. It does cancel out a Voyage turn. It does cancel out a extra turn with Outpost, which is a problem because then you'll have a 3-card hand in your next turn. Not too much you could do to get around the skip turn. It's a very dangerous game to play, knowing that your opponent knowing that they get 2 turns, so they could do like a 2-turn pile out, whereas you can only do like a 1-turn power play on that 1 turn. So pretty situational effect. I think it's not. It's definitely feels like a deal with some malicious spirit because, but it's it's a village too. So I guess that's something. But I mean, it's a village that takes away your action from the next turn. So maybe not. It's a very upfront thing, and if you have 2 liches, well, you make sure that your first lich draws everything you need to set up do the shenanigans with the second lich. So maybe they have but then if you play 2 liches, you're gonna skip multiple turns. They stack onto each other. But even so, I feel like um the first part synergizes with the second at the bottom of the line if you have multiple liches, so at least it has a self synergy. Um, Otherwise, I mean, it synergizes with Conjurer. I don't know. So it's more. So this pile overall, what do you do with it? Well, basically you go get Student for trashing and maybe Conjurer for actions, and then maybe you stop it. You get a Sorcerer. That's it's a cute. It's I don't know. You can do a lot of spinning wheels, but I feel like um, the townsfolk are more traditional, like good stuff for your deck. This one, it's really more narrow compared to uh, townsfolk. That's always going to be doing something valuable to your deck. Um, a few other cards that explore this duration wonkiness. So Merchant Camp is +2 cards, +1 coin. Doesn't drop. When you discard this from play, you may put this onto your deck. Um, yeah, for 3, if I want the village, I want to have a village I could keep getting. Sometimes a village is more important than the card. At the village at the start of your turn is more important than the card. It's if you're it's nice. I feel like it's nice. I'm often paranoid about gutting, so for me, Merchant Camp is nice. But I think getting more than uh, compared to Vila, that also gives a plus buy. This is not a particularly amazing card, but it's very good for reliability for actions at least. But yeah, top decking multiple merchant camps is going to still give you a potential dud. So you stop at like what you top deck 1 merchant camp because typically that first action is the most important, where you play a big draw card, um, and then you won't get 1 action. So that's kind of how with Coin of the Realm. That's what you. That's why Coin of the Realm is really nice. You draw something and you get actions back. Although this takes up a card space in your hand, so I'm not amazed by Merchant Camp, but it's something. Uh, I think personally, I like that it feeds sates my paranoia in some sense. But maybe I'm focusing on the wrong aspect and should be focusing more on the cards I do want to have in my starting hand rather than the actions. Highwayman though, oh, I like Highwayman. At the start of your next turn, discard this from play and +3 cards. Until then, the first treasure each other player plays each turn does nothing. So that's like mine. It usually is like a -1 coin, but it affects uh, if they just have a relic or a what's that card, crown. I care about the top part, getting delayed +3 cards. Like it's like haunted, so it's like haunted woods, but you don't need to necessarily get too haunted. So I just like haunted woods in general. I just like having that +3 cards. It is compared to Wharf not nearly as the reason like haunted high what's it called haunted woods and highwayman are not as good as don't feel as good as wharf in practice is that the wharf you play it you get +2 cards immediately, which you use to buy, let's say, a 5 or a good card, and then that gets shuffled into the next shuffle. That even though the dwarf gives you +2 cards for. So basically, Wharf is not it's boosting it's boosting your current turn right now, so that when you get the +2 cards later, your deck's in a better position to take advantage of it. Whereas Highwayman, or Haunted Woods, you play it, your turn kind of stops. It doesn't feel as good, and then when you get the +3 cards, you're getting a little bit worse than you would have had with the Wharf, because you lost some initiative on that first turn, so it's less snowbally than Wharf. But still, the fact that it discards itself from play, the whole point of that is that you can find it again and play the same Highwayman. So if you have 3 Highwaymen, they're not going to be shuffled into your deck. What they're going to do is they give you the +3 cards and then they discard them. So no, it's not like that. They discard themselves and then give +2 cards. So you could find them in the same shuffle. Never mind. But still, it's more if you're drawing when you're drawing a lot, when you're drawing deck and you reliably get them. That's like pretty efficient on the gain. So you only have to gain half as many as you would if you wanted to stagger Haunted Woods. So you don't have to worry about staggering these anymore. You just play whatever Highwayman you get, and you get the attack on to help buy time for that. I don't know how good the attack is, but it's still a -1, so it's kind of like Haunted Woods meets Bridge Troll, but doesn't give plus buy. But I still like just duration draw that's that significant. I think is worth something, and that you can play. The big thing that I don't like in certain durations is that you don't get to play them every turn. The draw ones, like with well, hireling is +1 every time, but like let's say caravan, you have to get like 2 of them just to get +1 card. This is like the same one that's giving a +3 at the cost of your current turn. So it's more like +2 net for 1 gain. Uh, and having a bigger search space at the start of your turn is pretty important. Like, so let's say if you wanted to pair your villages with a draw card or your merchant camp with a draw card, it's kind of having more at the start of your turn is what I like. There's a few more allies we can discuss that were also revealed that day. So island focus at the end of the turn. If the previous turn wasn't yours, you may spend 5 favors to take another turn. So you could play, let's say, Voyage and this on the same turn. You'll get 2 extra turns. One of them you'll only get to play 3 cards, but the rest will be a normal. So these are normal turns, by the way. The island folk that they're giving you. Here's where really you want to have a repeated source of favors to take advantage of this, and this is where I think Bobble and Hireling are amazing with island folk, because there's nothing that says you can't get in favors on the extra turn. So what happens is that you get an extra turn with those 5 favors, and on that extra turn you play like 3 of your you play 3 hirelings. Then the next turn you play another 2 or 3 hirelings, and then you have the favors to do that the whole thing over again. So it's like every turn you're getting you're getting an extra turn every cycle. If you have those kinds of cards. Bobble too, it doesn't draw, but still you can play several baubles on the extra turn. I think that's the big that's why Island Folk is like even better than it looks, given depending on the liaison card. Otherwise, if it's like students, man, you're getting ideally. I don't know if trashing 5 treasures and never hitting 5 for a very long time is worth getting 1 extra turn somewhere down the road. By contrast, something like Broker, if you have a way of getting fuel, let's say if you have like a bandit that gains a gold in every cycle you turn, um, you trash. Let's say you trash you trash like a gold or a silver, and you get the favors. You need to take an extra turn. You could do that reliably, because here's the thing about Broker with Island Folk is that you can either play that broker on the same on that extra turn to gain your favors back to get another extra turn the next cycle, or on the next cycle, the first turn of the next cycle, you find your broker, which maybe you didn't find before, and then you trash something. So there's a lot of flexibility. There's the flexibility of the fact that broker can get a lot of favors at once, depending on the fuel. Um, with fuel that you might just be gaining back on the extra turn. I think that there's definitely um, uh, engine there. So Island Folk has some very very powerful implications on the game. The other one is Order of Masons. When shuffling, you may pick up to 2 cards per favor you spend to put into your discard pile. So this is like, in the sense of Cave Dwellers, that you could pay more than 1 favor to get to compound the effect. And I think this is very convenient to have in a lot of situations that you start the game with a favor. So immediately you could prevent that first favor. You could prevent 2 of your estates from getting shuffled in the deck, so you could get a really good card. You could get like a 5 or a 6 with certain openings. More than that, if you let's say you open with like a trash or like a remodel or something, or butcher, and you want to make sure that it hits the card you want to see, you can make that happen. Um, as for specific liaisons with like Underling, basically, I think if you like play like 3 or 4 Underlings and get rid of like 8 cards in your discard pile when you shuffle, so that's you're gonna imagine your starting coppers. You have like, let's say, 7 starting coppers, and then with 4 favors, you're able to get rid of all of those coppers from your shuffle. And then with your fresh shuffle, without those coppers, you play those Underlings, and then the next time you shuffle, you do it all over again. You get rid of those coppers. So basically, it's like you quote unquote trashed all your coppers. You sent them away into like a pseudo island mat, pseudo native village mat, for the whole game. At some point, with, let's say, Underling, with something that's a really good favor giver like Underling. That's consistent. Whereas it's not as good with something like Broker, because you do it once and then you have to make sure that you Broker can do it again. You kind of like it could work out with Broker, but you really have to give it a lot of fuel, and then Broker's terminal. It doesn't, like, unless you choose the actions. But if you want to get the favors, it would be not it would be tougher. Similarly with Bauble is another one where uh, it's not nearly as good, because the Bauble itself is a stop card. So if you have 3 Baubles, you have to keep those in the shuffle if you want to keep getting the favors. That's so the benefit of that you got from the Order of Masons is a lot less pronounced if your favor givers are stop cards that they're not drawing. So, but still, you get rid of some stuff. So if you have a lot of draw, I mean, it's something. You're getting rid of 1 card. You're getting rid of 1 stop card in your supply pile, in net, since one of the second one cancels out with the Bauble. But tiling doesn't. That's like an extra hireling. It replaces itself anyway. So that's. And with student, I don't have a good gauge of how um, strong the Order of Masons would be with students. I mean, you have Conjurer. Like, Conjurer puts itself in your hand anyway. You're not really gonna not see the Conjurer. The Wizard, sure, but it takes a while to get to Wizard if you keep trashing um, stuff with the student. And the big problem is the student makes it that you shuffle less often, because the student keeps top decking itself if you're going for the favors. So with other liaison cards, though, we could be seeing some good. We could potentially be seeing some other very good synergies with the Order of Masons. Speaking of synergies, we have on the last day, we've got some more cards revealed. We got Importer revealed. So at the start of your next turn, gain a card costing up to 5, and then set up each player gets +4 favors. So that might be the only liaison card on the board. So it might be that you have every player starts with 5 favors, and that's it. They don't get any more. So then it becomes difficult to know how to spend those favors depending on the uh, situation. Some of them are going to be no-brainers. I think Architects Guild, you're just going to use it at the best. You're going to use it twice at the best opportunities. That's easy. Island Folk, basically, you have a free extra turn, so a free seize the day. Uh, any point on the game, that's going to be pretty hard to gauge when to use that. Uh, Order League of Bankers, that means everyone gets +1, so that's nice. What is it? Peaceful Cult, everyone gets a trash 5. That's pretty amusing. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff that will happen with the favors, those extra favors. The card itself, gaining a card costing up to 5, not to your hand, so it's not end terminal. So like, I'm just thinking of what is it, Cobbler, where it's a 5, but it gains a 4 to your hand. Non-terminal. This is terminal, gains a 5. Costs 3. This is like feast. This is like the fixed feast, where it's like people are one. It's like, hey, getting 5s is good after all. Sometimes it's worth a terminal slot. Well, yes, we know that. It's just it comes at a price. So this is like not a silver you didn't get. So you have to make sure that you want a lot of 5s as opposed to just like buying a 5. Because if instead of an importer I bought a silver and then hit 5, just got that 5 I wanted anyway. The importer's not looking so good, which it might be that you drew the importer turn 4 and then you shuffled and then you gained the 5. So it's actually really slow. So you need to have an excess of cards you want to get at 5 or less. It does have some synergies with certain allies, though, like the Architects Guild, as I mentioned before, you gain a cheaper card. There's also, Crafters Guild, where you can just top deck this, play turn 2. With City State, you can play this turn 1 and gain a 5 that same shuffle. So there's still, I think I really like the setup, the way the setup works. The card too, I actually I'm probably gonna get it more than I should. That's my call. I'm gonna get this card more than I should, and I'm gonna lose because I got imported. Because I like the effect. The next card is the Courier. +1 coin. Discard the top card of your deck. Look through your discard pile. You may play an action or treasure from it. Uh, what do I say about this card? It might be a silver. It might discard a copper. It might discard an estate. And then if it's top of your shuffle, you just played it +1. But you got rid of it. So it's like +1 card, +1 coin sometimes, and maybe +1 action if depending on what it discards. But maybe you also have a hefty discard pile anyway, which is going to be pretty common, especially in the early game, especially against discard attacks. Uh, then it's kind of like a non-terminal cantrip, not cantrip, but it depends what you discard. So if you discard a junk, yes, it was a cantrip, but. In thicker decks, I think if you have like a key card and then you have couriers, you can play that card multiple times. You can, let's say, play warehouse, discard stuff, and have a target for this. The problem is that if you have a card in your discard that you discarded just so that courier could hit it, that's like not a card that you drew. That was like something you put away, so just so that this thing could become non-terminal. You're really hoping that you're getting value off what you're discarding from the top of your deck. Otherwise, it's just um, a really bad. It's otherwise it's like um, less a variant on the scheme. Otherwise, the courier. But um, I feel like it's a bit, especially at 4. It feels like a tough sell in a lot of situations. So I'm not as keen on it, but I think I think I have to play with the courier more. The other one is Royal Galley. This one is okay. So this is +1 card. You may play a non-duration action card from your hand. Set it aside. If you did, then at the start of your next turn, play it. I think this card is amazing. Remember what I said about Wharf earlier? You're getting a benefit now, which you're going to be using that benefit so that when you get the next turn benefit, uh, you already have that benefit from the last turn that's going to boost your next turn. Like you gained a good card that you shuffled in, now you're drawing it. So this, depending on what it hits, Hopefully, the idea is that you plus this and you hit a draw card. If you hit a smithy, that's like you're going to town there because you next turn you're playing that smithy now and you're playing it next turn. That's the big thing is that you're playing the card both times. If it hits a um, non-terminal, that's like it turns that into a duration. But here's the thing about the durations. If you look at fishing village or caravan or what were those seaside durations that haven? They're doing something worse on the current turn to do something better on the next turn. This with Royal Galley, those cards are basically doing the same as something that has good, something that's almost as good this turn as it will be next turn. The next turn is going to be even better. So like if you're playing a cantrip coin, um, you're still getting that cantrip coin now, and then you're getting a cantrip coin plus like um, lost city next turn. So like whereas if it was just a single card, you you were probably just gonna get like something like I don't know like a light. It was if it's lighthouse, you were gonna get like one coin, not draw something this turn. So it boosts those other cards better. With the drawback is that well, this is an extra card you need in your deck. This is you have to have the Royal Galleys and that other card, and you have to make sure that they encounter each other. So the big thing is that this could whiff. It might not find the card you want to pair it with. It doesn't work with itself, so that I mean, that's good for tracking. But being able to have certain effects, certain duration effects are really good, particularly draw. Anything that's like plus two cards, um, you want to have that. Those are amazing to have as a duration effect. And if this could find any of them, uh, you're going to be in a really good spot, and you're going to be able to keep playing. You're going to be these do stay in. The Royal Galleys aren't like Highwaymen; they do stay in play for that turn. So you do need more of them, but and it's not like you're taking an extra turn. So this. I'm not saying this is going to be good every game because you have to gain it. And games that are buy limited, I think there's going to be a point where you need, especially early game, you need stuff that's going to be more reliable. You don't want to screw around, and if you can't get your action density up, there's some risks with the Royal Galley. But um, if you can get something at least a reasonable action density, and then if you can get the Royal Galley chain going, you can maintain a very uh, reliable deck afterwards. You can like kind of supercharge your deck. So I really like well both Importer and Royal Galley more, but Importer I like the setup. There's a couple more allies family. These ones I haven't played with them actually. They haven't turned up. For a family of eventers at the start of your buy phase, you may put a favor token you have on a non-victory supply pile. Cards cost one less per favor token on their piles. So there's something I feel like I want to say about this. Typically, symmetric effects are can be an issue with Bishop. Let's say you trash a card and then your opponent trashes a card, and you get some benefit, but they get a benefit without playing like a terminal and a stop card. But the difference with Family of Eventers is that you don't lose anything by doing this effect, and you time it. It's at the buy phase, so you're getting the effect first. You're getting the advantage of the cost reduction first, and you didn't do any. You didn't hurt your turn in any way to use that effect. You just got it for free. So in that sense, it's a lot. It's give the fact that it gives you initiative for doing basically nothing, at least at the beginning of the game with that first favor. That's already reason enough to use it. And then if you have, let's say, a very specific plan, you can use. This is very flexible with a lot of more so than a lot of the others. This is very flexible with the liaisons that you want. Cards. So like even like students is going to be have uses with this because maybe you only want a little bit of cost reduction. The fact that it's symmetrical anyway means that it's not doesn't really matter about you're not caring about how much absolute cost reduction you're getting. You care about how much cost reduction can you use more over my opponent. How much does this matter more for what I'm doing than my opponent's doing? And for something that like student that's trashing while gaining favors, I think you're going to get a lot of mileage, especially with that issue I brought up with student where you can't hit price points anymore. Well, with the favors, you could counteract that. So if you can make a key pile cost 2, suddenly your students are looking very good. And whereas with hireling, like ironically with stuff like hireling, it's like, okay, you can reduce the cost of something as low as you want, but your opponent gets that 2, and you bought a can't, and the Underling's not doing anything to benefit from the cost reduction. Uh, so it's like it kind of flips over. The family event just flips over which liaisons are good with it. Typically, it's Bauble is going to be really nice with this because it gives plus buy. In fact, if you have a cheap pile and you play Baubles, and you get extra copies of that, so watch out for that. Watch out for any liaison card that suddenly gives plus buy. It's going to be a very nice synergy. And then the last one, at the start of your turn, discard down to 4 cards in hand unless you spend a favor. So this is discard down to 4 cards. So if you had, let's say, things that set aside and put them at the start of your hand, like Save, like Coastal Haven, like Conjurer, you're going back down to 4 cards in hand. You're not. That's pretty painful. That's why. But you only have to spend 1 favor to keep all of those cards. So that's something to keep in mind. It hurts. This is basically a global attack. So at the beginning of the game, I figure don't spend the if you have a state in your hand, don't spend the favor. Obviously, the nice thing is that since you start the game with 1 favor, this doesn't screw you out of getting a 5. So I like it for that. You can just spend that 1 favor to get your 5 cost and not get like utterly screwed over at the start of the game for no fault of your own. Afterwards, though, it won't take much to alleviate this. Let's say at least Hireling can alleviate it pretty well, but otherwise it does nothing. So you're basically getting a card to counteract the discard attack. Okay. Um, Other cards it might be more problematic, like with um, Broker and but mostly Broker. Maybe Bobble too, like because Bobble, that's a stop card. Anything that's like a stop card. Anytime you're getting a stop card to gain favors to avoid this effect, maybe reconsider if it's worth if it's not doing enough else besides that effect. Reconsider. Maybe just live with the having a 4-card hands for the rest of the game. It's not like you're trashing the card. It's not like a forced cathedral. On a key turn, maybe you need 5 cards. At least you have that flexibility. Sometimes you care about having 4 cards in hand. For let's say Diplomat particularly. If you have this draw to X, draw up, like let's say Library or Watchtower, all that. That counteracts this, but there was maybe you still discarded since you're not cycling that card, you're basically you're breaking even, so it's not you're mitigating it, but you're not necessarily benefiting from the gang of pickpockets. There's no guarantee that you discarded a junk card to the gang of pickpockets, so it kind of cancels out. But early game, at least, you're cycling more often. Like you're drawing more cards with Watchtower, so you're getting to the shuffle faster. So maybe this is not necessarily a bad thing every game. But yeah, I just wanted to point out, just don't be so scared about this effect that you're willing to put like 3 baubles in your deck, which is just probably gonna be, and you don't have anything else to do with the bauble. Well, the bauble does top deck, so probably get a bauble. Top deck and give bauble, so probably gonna get a bauble anyway. Do get the bauble. It's nice. It's a nice card. I maybe didn't mention that, but um, Broker's a bit. I mean, what you should do instead is get Broker to make sure that you trash your stuff. You're not getting. Just don't use the favor option with Broker. Just do the other stuff like the plus cards. It's quite nice. The plus coin can be. You could trash a province, get +8. If you have a plus, it doesn't give the plus buy like Salvador does, but if you have a plus buy, that's a nice mill effect. I don't know if I could say mill anymore because we used to say that to replace a province with a province or a colony with a colony, but now miller exists, which has nothing to do with that concept. But oh well. Anyway, I think that's the last card. So like, thanks for listening. These are my thoughts of the preview cards, and pretty soon we'll get the whole set, and I'll give my thought. I'm gonna look through the rule book and give my thoughts on the cards. my first impressions of the cards without having played with any of them besides the preview cards. Uh, Thanks. Bye.